My 9-year-old disabled daughter Emma just wanted to use her wheelchair ramp to get home from school. But our HOA president Karen was waiting. She grabbed Emma's wheelchair and crushed 4 fingers on her hand. When I tried to get justice as a police officer, I was fired instantly. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. The fluorescent lights of Lincoln Elementary's parking lot buzzed overhead as I watched my daughter Emma wheel herself toward our van. Her rainbow backpack bounced against the back of her wheelchair, and despite everything life had thrown at her 9-year-old shoulders, she wore that same bright smile that made my heart ache with pride every single day. Emma had been in that wheelchair since she was 4. A drunk driver had stolen her ability to walk, but he couldn't steal her spirit. Not my girl. She painted, she sang, she made friends easily, and she never once asked, "Why me?" Even on her worst days, when the phantom pains kept her awake at night, she would squeeze my hand and whisper, "It's okay, Daddy. Tomorrow will be better." I was a police officer. Had been for 15 years. I'd seen the worst humanity had to offer, but coming home to Emma's smile made it all worth it. My wife Sarah worked as a nurse, and together we built a good life in our small townhouse community. The HOA was strict, sure, but we followed the rules. We paid our dues on time. We kept our lawn trimmed. We never caused problems. Until the day we installed the wheelchair ramp. The doctors had recommended it months ago. Emma was getting bigger, stronger, more independent. Carrying her up and down the 3 front steps was becoming difficult, and more importantly, it hurt her pride. She wanted to come and go on her own, like other kids. So we saved every penny, applied for grants, and finally, we had enough. The ramp was beautiful. Wooden, professionally installed, with handrails that Emma had helped me paint a soft purple, her favorite color. It met every building code, every safety regulation. Emma had cried happy tears the day it was finished, wheeling herself up and down a dozen times, laughing with pure joy. "I can do it myself now, Daddy," she'd shouted. "I can really do it myself." That was on a Saturday. By Monday morning, there was a bright orange violation notice stapled to our front door. Unapproved exterior modification, it read. Structure must be removed within 14 days or fines will be assessed at $100 per day. Signed, Margaret Whitmore, HOA President. Margaret Whitmore. Karen, as everyone in the neighborhood secretly called her. She was exactly what you'd picture, mid-50s, blonde hair sprayed into a helmet, expensive athleisure where she bought for yoga classes she never actually attended, and a permanent expression like she just smelled something rotten. She drove a white Mercedes SUV with a "Live, Laugh, Love" sticker next to one that said HOA board member, like it was a badge of honor. I'd dealt with Karens before in my line of work. Every cop has. The ones who call 911 because their neighbor's grass is a half-inch too tall. The ones who demand to speak to your supervisor when you won't arrest someone for parking in their spot on a public street. But this was different. This was my home. My daughter. I took a deep breath and walked to Margaret's house that evening. I would be reasonable. I would explain. I would show her the medical documentation, the building permits, everything. She answered the door with a wine glass in one hand and her phone in the other. "Officer Reeves," she said, not even pretending to be friendly. "I assume you got our notice. Mrs. Whitmore, I wanted to talk to you about the ramp. My daughter needs it. She's in a wheelchair, Anne." "I'm aware of your daughter's condition," she interrupted, taking a sip of wine. "And while I sympathize, the HOA has rules. You should have submitted the modification for approval before installation." My jaw tightened. We followed every city building code. We have all the proper permits from the county. The ADA. The HOA covenant supersedes personal preferences, she said, her voice dripping with practiced condescension. Every homeowner signed the same agreement. We can't make exceptions, or everyone will want exceptions. You understand. My daughter needs to access her own home, I said slowly, fighting to keep my voice level. This isn't a preference. It's a medical necessity. Margaret's eyes went cold. Then perhaps you should have considered that before purchasing a home in a community with architectural standards. The ramp is an eyesore, and frankly, it affects everyone's property values. You have 2 weeks. She closed the door in my face. I stood there for a long moment, my fists clenched, my police training warring with my father's rage. Sarah found me on the front porch 20 minutes later, staring at nothing. She said no. Sarah asked quietly. I nodded. Then we fight, Sarah said, her nurse's calm turning to steel. We go to the next HOA meeting. We bring documentation. We bring witnesses. We make them see reason. But reason, as it turned out, wasn't something Margaret Whitmore dealt in. The next HOA meeting was held in the community center, a bland beige room with folding chairs and a long table at the front where Margaret sat flanked by 4 other board members, all of them looking vaguely uncomfortable as Sarah and I presented our case. We brought everything. Emma's medical records. Letters from her doctors. The building permits. Photographs of the ramp. I even brought documentation showing that the Fair Housing Act and the Americans with Disabilities Act protected our right to make reasonable modifications for disability access. Margaret listened with a tight smile, her manicured nails tapping against the table. When we finished, she cleared her throat. Thank you for your presentation. However, the board has reviewed the covenant, and we find that the ramp does violate our architectural standards. The HOA was established to maintain property values and aesthetic continuity. We sympathize with your situation, but we cannot set a precedent of allowing unapproved modifications. You're not listening, I said, my voice rising despite my best efforts. Federal law protects disability accommodations. You can't force us to remove something my daughter needs to access her home. We're not discriminating, Margaret said smoothly. We're simply enforcing our covenant. You're welcome to pursue legal action if you feel your rights have been violated, but until then, the ramp must be removed, or fines will continue to accrue. One of the other board members, an older man named Frank, shifted uncomfortably. Margaret, maybe we should consult with an attorney before. The decision is made, Margaret snapped. Meeting adjourned. The fine started the next day. $100 per day. $700 per week. $3,000 per month. We couldn't afford it. Sarah and I both worked full-time, but between Emma's medical expenses, her physical therapy, her medications, we were already stretched thin. I called the police department's legal advisor. He confirmed what I already knew, the HOA was violating federal law, but fighting it would require hiring an attorney, filing lawsuits, months or even years of legal battles we couldn't afford. Sometimes, he told me sadly, people with power use it to bully those without resources to fight back. It's legal extortion, and it's disgusting, but it happens. Emma noticed us fighting more. Noticed the stress. One night, I found her in her room crying, her small hands gripping the wheels of her chair. I heard you and Mommy talking about money, she whispered. It's because of me. Because of my ramp. My heart shattered. I knelt beside her chair, taking her hands in mine. No, baby. No. This is not your fault. Not even a little bit. Maybe we should just take it down, she said, tears streaming down her face. I can go back to crawling up the steps. I don't mind. I don't want you to be sad because of me. I held my daughter while she cried, and something dark and furious crystallized in my chest. This woman, this cruel, petty woman, had made my child feel like a burden. Had made my brave, strong, beautiful daughter cry and offer to crawl upstairs rather than cause her parents stress. That was when I knew I would never, ever forgive Margaret Whitmore. But I underestimated just how much worse she could make things. It was a Tuesday afternoon, 3 weeks after the first notice. I was at the station, finishing up paperwork, when my phone rang. Sarah's number. She never called during work unless it was important. Mark. Her voice was shaking. You need to come home. Now. Emma, she's hurt. The ambulance is coming. I don't remember the drive home. Don't remember running red lights, don't remember the other officers clearing the way when they heard my radio call. I just remember pulling into our neighborhood and seeing the ambulance, the flashing lights, the crowd of neighbors standing around our driveway. And Emma on a stretcher, crying, her right hand wrapped in blood-soaked towels. What happened? I demanded, but I was already moving toward her, already reaching for my daughter. A paramedic stopped me. Sir, we need to transport her now. Her fingers are badly injured. We need to get her to the hospital. I'm coming with her. You should follow in your car. We need room to work. I wanted to argue, to push past him, but Sarah grabbed my arm. Mark. Let them do their job. We'll follow right behind. In the ambulance, as it pulled away, I turned to the crowd. What happened? Someone tell me what happened. A neighbor, an elderly woman named Mrs. Chen, stepped forward, her face pale. It was Margaret. She was screaming at Emma. I saw it. I saw the whole thing. The blood drained from my face. What? Emma was coming home from school. She was wheeling up the ramp, and Margaret was waiting. She started yelling about the ramp, about violations, about lawsuits. Emma tried to go inside, but Margaret grabbed the wheelchair. She grabbed it and tried to pull Emma back down the ramp. Emma held on to the handrail, and Margaret just slammed the wheelchair back. Emma's hand got caught between the rail and the chair. I heard the bones break from across the street. The world tilted. Where is she? Where is Margaret? She went back to her house, Mrs. Chen said, her voice shaking. She said Emma shouldn't have been using an illegal ramp. She said it was Emma's fault for trespassing on HOA property. I turned toward Margaret's house. My vision was red. My hands were shaking. Every instinct I had, every protective father's rage, every ounce of fury I'd been suppressing for weeks, came roaring to the surface. Sarah grabbed me. Mark. Don't. Emma needs you at the hospital. Please. Her voice, desperate and scared, cut through the rage. She was right. Emma needed me. Everything else could wait. But it wouldn't wait long. At the hospital, the doctors delivered the news that made me want to tear the world apart. 4 of Emma's fingers on her right hand were broken. Not just broken, crushed. The bones had been compressed against the metal handrail with such force that there was nerve damage, tendon damage. She would need surgery. She would need months of physical therapy. She might never regain full use of her hand. My daughter, who loved to paint, who drew pictures and wrote stories and held my hand when we walked together, might never use her right hand properly again. Emma was sedated for the pain, but before she went under, she looked at me with tears in her eyes and whispered, "Daddy, it hurts so much." Why did she do that? I was just trying to go home. I couldn't answer. I couldn't speak. I just kissed her forehead and promised her everything would be okay, even though I didn't know if that was true. Sarah and I sat in the waiting room during the surgery. 3 hours. 3 hours of hell, of imagining the worst, of fighting not to leave the hospital and do something I'd regret. My phone rang. My captain. Captain Williams was a good man, fair, someone I'd worked under for 8 years. "Reeves," he said. His voice was tight. "I heard about Emma. How is she?" "In surgery. For crushed fingers. That woman attacked my daughter, Captain. She assaulted a disabled child." "I know. And that's why I'm calling. I need you to listen to me very carefully. Do not go near Margaret Whitmore. Do not approach her. Do not investigate this. You're too close, and you know it. She hurt my daughter, I said, my voice breaking. She crushed my little girl's hand because of a goddamn wheelchair ramp. And she'll be held accountable. But not by you. I'm sending officers Martinez and Johnson to take her statement and file charges. You need to stay at the hospital and be with your family. That's an order. I wanted to argue. Wanted to scream. But he was right, and I knew it. So I agreed. But that's not how things happened. Because while Emma was in surgery, while Sarah and I were trapped in that waiting room, Margaret Whitmore made a phone call. To her brother. Who happened to be a city councilman. Who happened to have connections with the police commissioner. By the time Emma was out of surgery, by the time the doctors told us the operation had gone as well as could be expected but Emma would need intensive therapy and there was still a chance of permanent disability, by the time I'd held my daughter's small, bandaged hand and promised her I'd make everything right, my captain called again. Reeves. You need to come to the station. Now. I'm not leaving my daughter. It's not a request. It's a summons. The commissioner wants to see you. A cold knot formed in my stomach. Why? Just come in. I kissed Emma, told Sarah I'd be back soon, and drove to the station in a daze. The commissioner's office was on the 3rd floor. I'd been there twice before, both times for commendations. This time felt different. Commissioner Bradley sat behind his desk, his expression unreadable. Captain Williams stood to the side, looking like he wanted to be anywhere else. And in the chair across from the commissioner sat Margaret Whitmore's brother, Councilman David Whitmore, looking smug and satisfied. Officer Reeves, the commissioner said. Sit down. I sat. I'm going to cut right to the chase. Mrs. Margaret Whitmore has filed a complaint against you. She claims you've been harassing her for weeks, making threats, creating a hostile environment in your neighborhood. She's also claiming that the incident this afternoon involving your daughter was an accident, that your daughter's wheelchair slipped while Mrs. Whitmore was attempting to help her, and that you've orchestrated a campaign to defame her character because of a legitimate HOA dispute. I stared at him. That's a lie. All of it. There are witnesses. Mrs. Chen saw everything. My daughter was assaulted. This woman crushed my child's hand. Mrs. Whitmore has her own witnesses, Councilman Whitmore said smoothly. 2 other HOA board members who were present and confirm it was an accident. They weren't there. Mrs. Chen was there. Mrs. Chen is 84 years old with documented vision problems, the councilman said. Her testimony isn't reliable. I turned to the commissioner. Sir, you can't be believing this. My daughter is in the hospital right now. For crushed fingers. Nerve damage. The doctors say she might have permanent disability. Which is tragic, the commissioner said. And I'm truly sorry for your family's situation. But Officer Reeves, I need to ask you directly, have you made any threats toward Mrs. Whitmore? No. Have you had any confrontations with her? I went to her house to discuss the ramp. She refused to listen. I followed proper channels. I went to the HOA meeting with documentation. Did you raise your voice? Make any aggressive gestures? I hesitated. I'd been angry at the meeting. I'd raised my voice when they refused to listen. I was frustrated. My daughter's rights were being violated. The commissioner sighed. Officer Reeves, I'm going to be direct with you. The councilman has made it very clear that if this department pursues charges against his sister, there will be significant political consequences. Budget cuts. Staffing issues. Oversight committees. He's got the power to make life very difficult for all of us. So that's it. I said, my voice rising. He threatens you, and you just cave. My daughter was assaulted. A woman crushed a disabled child's hand. And you're going to do nothing because of politics? Watch your tone, the commissioner snapped. I don't like this any more than you do, but I have an entire department to think about. Hundreds of officers whose jobs depend on city funding. So you'll sacrifice my daughter to protect your budget? The room went silent. Finally, Captain Williams spoke. Mark. Listen. We're going to investigate. We're going to interview witnesses. But you need to step back. Let us handle it. And in the meantime? The commissioner leaned forward. In the meantime, Officer Reeves, you're on administrative leave. Effective immediately. Badge and gun. You're too emotionally involved, and frankly, the councilman has made it clear that your presence on duty is going to be problematic until this is resolved. The world stopped. You're suspending me? My daughter is in the hospital, and you're suspending me? Administrative leave with pay, the commissioner clarified. It's not a punishment. It's a cooling-off period. It's cowardice, I said, standing up. You're punishing me because some spoiled woman with a connected brother doesn't want to face consequences for assaulting a child. Officer Reeves, the commissioner said, his voice hardening. You're dismissed. Badge and gun. Now. I looked at Captain Williams. He wouldn't meet my eyes. I placed my badge and service weapon on the desk. You're making a mistake. I'm doing what's necessary, the commissioner said. Take care of your daughter. We'll be in touch. I walked out of that office in a daze. 15 years. 15 years of service, of putting my life on the line, of trying to make a difference, and it took one phone call from a politician to throw me aside. I went back to the hospital. Emma was awake, groggy from the anesthesia, her hand wrapped in so many bandages it looked twice its normal size. Daddy, she whispered when she saw me. It hurts. I know, baby. I know. Did you catch the bad lady? Did you make her go to jail? I looked at Sarah. Her eyes were red from crying. She knew. She'd been texting with me, had heard what happened at the station. Not yet, I said, forcing a smile. But I will. I promise you, sweetheart. I will make this right. Emma nodded, trusting me completely, and fell back asleep. Sarah pulled me into the hallway. Mark. Tell me you're not going to do something stupid. Define stupid. You know what I mean. You saw her face. You heard the commissioner. They're protecting her. If you go after her, you'll lose everything. Your job. Your pension. You could go to jail. She crushed our daughter's hand, I said, my voice breaking. She hurt Emma, and she's going to get away with it because her brother makes phone calls. I know, Sarah said, tears streaming down her face. I know, and I hate it. I hate her. I hate all of them. But Emma needs you. I need you. Not in jail. Not throwing your life away for revenge. So what do we do? Just let her win. We fight smart, Sarah said. We hire a lawyer. We sue her. We go to the media. We make so much noise they can't ignore us. But we do it the right way. I wanted to believe her. Wanted to think that the system would work, that justice would prevail, that doing things the right way would matter. But I'd been a cop for 15 years. I knew better. Still, I promised Sarah I'd try. For Emma. For our family. I'd do things the right way. And for 3 days, I did. We hired a lawyer. A young woman fresh out of law school who took our case because she believed in us, not because we could pay her much. She filed police reports, documented everything, started building a case. We reached out to local news stations. Most ignored us. One reporter came by, took some footage of Emma's bandaged hand, interviewed us, and promised to run the story. It never aired. The station killed it. We found out later that Councilman Whitmore's wife sat on the station's board of directors. The HOA sent another notice. The fines were now over $8,000. They were filing a lien against our house. And Margaret Whitmore? She was seen at the country club, laughing with her friends, not a care in the world. On the third night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing Emma's face, hearing her cry, watching her trust in me when she asked if I'd caught the bad lady. I'd failed her. Failed to protect her. Failed to get justice. Failed at everything that mattered. At 2 in the morning, I got out of bed. Sarah was asleep, exhausted from spending all day at the hospital with Emma. I grabbed my phone and walked outside. The neighborhood was quiet. Dark. Peaceful. I walked to Margaret Whitmore's house. I don't know what I planned to do. Confront her. Demand she confess. Make her understand the pain she'd caused. Something. Anything. But when I got there, I saw something that changed everything. Her garage door was open. And sitting inside, clear as day, was a security camera pointed directly at our house. At our driveway. At the ramp. She'd been watching us. Recording us. Probably for weeks. Which meant there was footage. Video evidence of what really happened when she attacked Emma. I stood there, staring at that camera, and made a decision. I went home. Called our lawyer. Told her about the camera. By morning, we'd filed a subpoena for the security footage. Margaret's lawyer tried to fight it, claiming privacy concerns, but our lawyer was smarter than she looked. She argued that if Margaret was claiming the incident was an accident, the footage would prove her innocence, so there was no reason to withhold it. The judge agreed. 3 days later, we watched the footage. And it was worse than I'd imagined. The video showed Emma wheeling up the ramp, her backpack bouncing, that same smile on her face. Margaret appeared from the side of the house, clearly waiting for her. She began yelling, gesturing aggressively. Emma tried to move past her, reaching for the front door. Margaret grabbed the wheelchair with both hands and yanked it backward, hard. Emma grabbed the handrail instinctively, trying not to fall. Margaret pulled again, even harder, and that's when it happened. Emma's hand was crushed between the metal rail and the wheelchair frame. You could see the exact moment it happened. Could see Emma's face transform from confusion to shock to pure agony. Could hear her scream. And Margaret? She let go immediately, looked around to see if anyone was watching, and then quickly walked away. She didn't check on Emma. Didn't call for help. Just left a 9-year-old girl crying and bleeding on her own front porch. The video was damning. Showed clear intent. Showed assault. Showed that every word out of Margaret's mouth had been a lie. Our lawyer filed criminal charges. Assault of a minor. Causing bodily harm to a disabled person. Lying to police. The district attorney, facing irrefutable video evidence and mounting public pressure from social media where our story had finally broken through, had no choice but to prosecute. Margaret Whitmore was arrested on a Thursday morning. They put her in handcuffs right there in her driveway, in front of all the neighbors she'd lorded over for years. She screamed about lawsuits, about her brother, about how dare they treat her this way. No one came to her defense. The trial was quick. The video was played for the jury. Emma testified, her small voice steady as she described what happened, her bandaged hand resting in her lap. Other neighbors testified about Margaret's harassment, the threats, the abuse of HOA power. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, showed no mercy. Mrs. Whitmore, she said, looking down from the bench with undisguised contempt. You attacked a disabled child. A 9-year-old girl who was doing nothing more than trying to enter her own home. You crushed her hand with such force that she may never fully recover the use of it. And then you lied. You lied to police. You used your family's political connections to try to escape justice. You showed no remorse, no compassion, no basic human decency. Margaret started to speak, but the judge cut her off. I'm sentencing you to 5 years in state prison. You will also pay full restitution for all of Emma Reeves's medical expenses, both past and future. You will pay damages in the amount of $500,000 to the Reeves family. And you are hereby banned from serving in any HOA leadership position for the rest of your life. Margaret's face went white. You can't, I have connections. Your connections, the judge said coldly, mean nothing in my courtroom. Perhaps you should have considered that before you attacked a child. Take her away. As they led Margaret out, she locked eyes with me. For just a moment, I saw fear. Real fear. The same fear Emma had felt when this woman had hurt her. And I felt nothing. No satisfaction. No triumph. Just emptiness. Outside the courtroom, reporters swarmed us. Sarah held Emma close, protecting her from the cameras. Our lawyer gave a brief statement about justice being served. Someone asked me how I felt. I looked down at Emma, at her still healing hand, at the way she held on to Sarah a little tighter than she used to, at the wariness in her eyes that hadn't been there before Margaret Whitmore had hurt her. I feel, I said slowly, like we won a battle we never should have had to fight. My daughter had to suffer. Had to be traumatized. Had to be assaulted in her own driveway. All because one woman cared more about property values than human beings. The cameras kept rolling. But we're not done. The HOA that enabled this, that let Margaret Whitmore abuse her power for years, that valued aesthetics over accessibility, that prioritized rules over compassion, they need to change. Every HOA needs to change. Because if my daughter's pain can prevent this from happening to another child, another family, then maybe some good can come from this nightmare. The story went viral. National news picked it up. Suddenly, everyone was talking about HOA abuse, about disability rights, about the need for reform. Laws started changing. First in our state, then others. Protections for disability accommodations. Limits on HOA power. Requirements for reasonable modifications. Emma's Law, they called it. My daughter's pain became a catalyst for change. As for me, the department offered me my job back. Full reinstatement. An apology from the commissioner. Even a promotion. I turned it down. I'd seen what happened when political pressure met police work. When powerful people made phone calls and suddenly justice became negotiable. I couldn't be part of that system anymore. Instead, I became an advocate. Started working with disability rights organizations. Helped other families fight back against HOA abuse. Used my experience as a cop to navigate the legal system, to know where the pressure points were, to help people who couldn't help themselves. Sarah said I'd found my calling. That I was helping more people now than I ever had as a police officer. Maybe she was right. Emma slowly healed. The physical therapy was hard. There were setbacks. Days when she cried because she couldn't hold a pencil the same way, couldn't paint like she used to, couldn't do the things that had come so easily before. But my daughter was strong. Stronger than Margaret Whitmore had ever been. Stronger than anyone who'd underestimated her. 6 months after the trial, Emma painted a picture. Her first real painting since the injury. Her hand shook. Her grip wasn't perfect. But she finished it. It was a picture of our house. With the purple ramp leading up to the front door. And on the ramp, a little girl in a wheelchair, smiling, one hand raised in victory. She titled it, Home. We framed it. Hung it in our living room. And every time I see it, I remember what we fought for. What we survived. What we proved. That power doesn't always win. That bullies can be beaten. That even when the system fails you, even when the people who are supposed to protect you turn their backs, even when everything seems hopeless, you can still fight back. You can still win. Margaret Whitmore served 3 years before being paroled for good behavior. She lost everything. Her husband divorced her. Her friends abandoned her. She lost her house to pay the damages. Her brother resigned from the city council in disgrace. She sent one letter to our house. Sarah threw it away before I could read it, but she told me later it was an apology. Or an attempt at one. Words on paper that couldn't undo what she'd done. I don't know where Margaret is now. Don't care. She's no longer part of our story. Because our story isn't about her. It's about Emma. About a little girl who faced down a bully twice her size and won. Who lost the use of some of her fingers but never lost her spirit. Who turned her pain into purpose and helped change laws that would protect thousands of other kids. Every night, before Emma goes to sleep, I sit on the edge of her bed and hold her hand. Her right hand. The one that was hurt. The one that healed differently, that moves differently, that will never be exactly the same. And I tell her how proud I am. How brave she is. How strong. And she smiles that same bright smile and says, "It's okay, Daddy. Tomorrow will be better." And you know what? She's always right. Tomorrow is always better. Because we're still here. Still fighting. Still proving that compassion is stronger than cruelty, that love is stronger than hate, that a father's promise to his daughter is more powerful than any HOA covenant, any political connection, any bully with a badge of false authority. Emma rolls up that purple ramp every single day now. Sometimes I watch from the window. Watch her navigate it easily, confidently, independently. And I think about all the other kids out there who need ramps, need accommodations, need someone to fight for them when the world says no. And I think about how one terrible moment led to something bigger. Something important. Something that mattered. Margaret Whitmore tried to break my daughter. Tried to crush more than just her fingers. Tried to steal her independence, her joy, her home. She failed. Emma is stronger now than ever. Not despite what happened to her, but because of how she rose from it. Because of the grace she showed in her pain. Because of the courage she displayed when she testified. Because of the hope she inspired in everyone who heard her story. That's the thing about people like Margaret. They think power comes from control. From rules. From keeping others down. They're wrong. Real power comes from lifting others up. From standing beside your child when the world tries to knock her down. From refusing to let cruelty win. From painting purple ramps and hanging pictures titled "Home" and believing, always believing, that tomorrow will be better. My daughter taught me that. And I'll spend the rest of my life making sure other people learn it too. Because Emma's hand may have been crushed, but her spirit never was. And in the end, that's all that really matters. 2 years after the trial, our doorbell rang on a Saturday morning. I answered to find a young couple standing there, nervous smiles on their faces. The woman was in a wheelchair. "Officer Reeves," the man said. "I mean, Mr. Reeves. Sorry, we know you're not with the police anymore. We just wanted to meet you. And Emma, if that's okay." "Who are you?" I asked. "We're moving into the neighborhood," the woman said. "Unit 34. We saw your story online. About the ramp. About everything that happened. And we just wanted to say thank you. Because we were going to avoid HOA communities completely. We were scared. But because of Emma's law, because of what you fought for, we can live here. We can have a home." I called for Emma. She wheeled to the door, curious. "Emma," the woman said, tears in her eyes. "I wanted to meet the brave girl who made it possible for people like me to feel safe in our own homes." Emma smiled. That bright, beautiful, unbreakable smile. "Do you want to see my ramp?" she asked. "I painted it myself." "Well, my daddy helped. But I picked the color." And she took them outside to show them the purple ramp that had caused so much pain and led to so much change. I watched my daughter, so proud I could barely breathe, and thought, this is what justice looks like. Not a court verdict. Not a prison sentence. Not revenge. This. A young woman in a wheelchair, feeling safe enough to move into a neighborhood because a 9-year-old girl refused to be crushed. Emma looked back at me and winked. "Tomorrow's better, Daddy," she said. And it was. Sarah came outside then, carrying a tray of lemonade. She'd seen the couple from the kitchen window and understood immediately what this moment meant. What it represented. "Would you like to stay for lunch?" she offered. "We're just having sandwiches, nothing fancy." But Emma loves having company. The couple accepted gratefully, and we spent the afternoon on our back porch. Emma showed them her paintings, the ones she'd struggled to complete with her healing hand. The young woman, whose name was Jessica, looked at each one like it was a masterpiece. "You're really talented," Jessica said softly. "Don't ever stop creating, okay? The world needs more artists like you." Emma beamed with pride. Later that evening, after they'd left and Emma was getting ready for bed, she asked me a question that caught me off guard. "Daddy, do you think that mean lady is sorry? Really sorry?" I sat on the edge of her bed, choosing my words carefully. "I don't know, sweetheart. Some people only feel sorry when they get caught. Some people never understand the hurt they cause." Emma nodded thoughtfully. "I feel sorry for her." That surprised me. "You do?" "Yeah. Because she was so angry all the time. That must be really hard. Being angry makes your tummy hurt and your head hurt and you can't be happy. I think she must have been really sad inside to be so mean on the outside." I stared at my 9-year-old daughter, this child who had every right to hate the woman who'd hurt her, and instead she had compassion. Understanding. Forgiveness I wasn't sure I could ever have. "You're a better person than me," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "No," Emma said, shaking her head. "I just learned from you and Mommy. You taught me that being mean back doesn't make things better. It just makes more hurt." I kissed her forehead, unable to speak. "But Daddy," she added. "I'm still glad she went to jail. Because she needed to learn that hurting people is wrong." "That's fair," I agreed. "And I'm glad you lost your job. That one really surprised me." "You are?" "Yeah. Because now you help more kids. Like that lady in the wheelchair today. She was scared, and now she's not scared anymore. That's better than catching bad guys, I think. Because you're stopping bad things before they even happen. Out of the mouths of babes, as they say." Emma fell asleep holding my hand, the way she always did. Her injured hand in mine, the fingers that didn't quite curl the same way anymore, the scars that would never fully fade. But she was right. Tomorrow was better. And the day after that would be better still. Because we'd taken our pain and turned it into purpose. We'd taken our anger and transformed it into action. We'd taken one cruel woman's attempt to destroy us and built something beautiful from the rubble. That's the real victory. Not Margaret Whitmore sitting in a prison cell. Not the money we'd been awarded. Not even the law that bore my daughter's name. The real victory was Emma, sleeping peacefully, still capable of compassion despite her pain. Still able to smile despite her trauma. Still believing in tomorrow despite everything yesterday had taken from her. Margaret Whitmore had crushed 4 fingers. But Emma's spirit? That remained unbroken, unbeatable, unconquerable. And in the end, that made all the difference.